Hello again. I'm going to read from Zephaniah right now, chapter 3, and I think you'll recognize certain little chunks of this that have reference to our usual Watchtower scenario for Armageddon, and also our notion of a spiritual paradise and a spiritual unity among God's people today. Okay. Starting in verse 8.
Zephaniah 3, 8 to 10, and verse 13. Therefore, keep yourselves in expectation of me, is the utterance of Jehovah, till the day of my rising up to the booty. For my judicial decision is to gather nations, for me to collect together kingdoms, in order to pour out upon them my denunciation, all my burning anger. For by fire of my zeal all the earth will be devoured. For then I shall give to peoples the change to a pure language, in order for them all to call upon the name of Jehovah, in order to serve him shoulder to shoulder. From the region of the rivers of Ethiopia, the one entreating me, namely the daughter of my scattered ones, will bring a gift to me. As regards the remaining ones of Israel, they will do no unrighteousness, nor speak a lie, nor will there be found in their mouths a tricky tongue. For they themselves will feed and actually lie stretched out, and there will be no one making them tremble.
Verse 8 has some part of our Armageddon scenario, because it says Jehovah's decision is to gather nations, to assemble kingdoms, in order to pour out upon them his wrath or his indignation. All his burning anger, all the earth will be devoured by the fire of his zeal. And back in chapter 2, even a more familiar text that I might throw in here for consideration, where he says, gather yourselves together, yes, gather, O nation. Before the decree takes effect, the day passes like chaff. Before the burning anger of Yahweh, Jehovah, comes upon you, before the day of Yahweh's anger comes upon you, seek Yahweh, all you humble of the earth who have carried out his ordinances. Seek righteousness, seek humility. Perhaps you will be hidden in the day of the Lord's anger. That's a familiar picture for witnesses who are anticipating the worst happening when Armageddon breaks out. Perhaps is the key word, I think, here. The Watchtower loves the fact that the word perhaps is in, because it implies there's no surety or no security, and even in God's protection, unless you are faithful. So their appropriation of these verses in chapter 3, especially verse 9, where it talks about the pure language.
They spiritualize that, I would suppose.
How do you remember them talking about that back in the Kingdom Hall?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm foggy, but I thought they spiritualized it in that we all were in agreement with one another and all speaking the truth with, no matter what country you were from, we all believed the same thing. Is that right?
Yeah, I seem to recall that was the usual interpretation of it. The pure language had reference to our unity in speaking the same, no matter what land we were in. We all read the same materials, and we all preached the same thing.
We saw it as unity, not unifying of us, like an imposed unification of thought.
But again, the context trips up this interpretation, because, for instance, in verse 10, what's this about beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshippers, my dispersed ones, bringing offerings?
The daughter of my scattered ones.
So again, it's the same people that he has scattered. As far as Ethiopia, well, in those days, Ethiopia was like the end of the universe. This is as far as the Israelite mind had ever gone, let alone traveled. As far as their imagination, when Ethiopia represented the far southwest of the world. And it's interesting that even after we left the Watchtower and abandoned this method of interpretation, even while we were leaving, I think the Ethiopian famine was on.
Yeah, it was on. I remember at the time my sister and her husband, and they had 2 small children, and they had decided to move to where the need was greater, which was really still within Ontario.
Kingston?
Kingston. They were going to move to Kingston. And my little nephew, who was about 6 or 7 years old, when he heard that they were moving to where the need was greater, he said, "We're moving to Ethiopia?" So he knew where need was. He saw on the news famine. People are starving to death. So when they said that, he was ready. He was going to go to Ethiopia.
So it was about the time of Band-Aid, right?
Yeah, I think so.
The great African famine of the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
So we were seeing something amazing happen even within a few years of that. The Jewish people financed the bringing back of Ethiopian Falasha Jews by the thousands back to Israel because they thought they were at risk of the famine in Ethiopia and Sudan. So there was a limited fulfillment of these very verses even then.
Yeah. And I guess they would have spiritualized verse 13 that I read as well about the remaining ones of Israel. They will do no unrighteousness, nor speak a lie, nor will there be found in their mouths a tricky tongue. Well, we know right away that disqualifies it being applied to the Watchtower.
They have the convenient synonym for the 144,000 here, the idea of the remnant of Israel in verse 13. Doing no wrong, telling no lies. By the time we got around to analyzing this, I recall when you were typing this out, we were choking on it. Not in laughter either.
Yeah.
Because it seemed so ironic. We were finding out their history was a history of tricky-tonguedness. Yeah,
deceit and muddying things, fudging things.
So the idea that they had a pure tongue, a pure language, was also laughable by this time because we were finding out they'd never had a pure tongue. What they were preaching publicly was even disagreeing with what we currently believe. It was changed so frequently, the public message. And it wasn't just private interpretations. It was the public preaching that was changing.
Yeah. So when they changed the 1914, I always wonder how my family, for example, felt about that, and all the friends that I had who for generations we've been spouting, this generation will not pass away.
And then 5 years after we left, this generation was changed.
Yeah.
Just as we predicted it would be.
Yeah, we did kind of prophesy that one.
So verse 13 is the killer here for me, which is this remnant of Israel in those days, the last days, will tell no lies, nor will a deceitful tongue be found in their mouths. They will feed and lie down with no one to make them tremble. And when has that been fulfilled?
Yeah.
But it says it will be.
Yeah. These prophecies given to Israel, if we're going to believe in the Word of God, they have to come true.
Listen to this. This is the culmination of Zephaniah. Shout for joy, O daughter of Zion. Shout in triumph, O Israel. Rejoice and exult with all your heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. Jehovah has taken away his judgments against you. He has cleared away your enemies. The King of Israel, Jehovah, Yahweh, is in your midst. You will fear no disaster anymore. In that day it will be said to Jerusalem, don't be afraid, O Zion. Don't let your hands fall limp, because Jehovah your God is in your midst.